Good morning. We are going to look into the topic human resources management. So, first, before entering into the subject, we look into the introduction as to human resources management. So, human resources management, or simply we call it in a smaller terms called as HRM or simply HR, is the management of human resources. Every activity in organizations happens through humans. It is a function in the organizations designed to maximize employee performance in service of an employer's strategic objectives. The strategic objectives normally will be determined by the employer. He has his own goals that needs to be achieved. Normally, the goals are divided into three types, which is called as a small term goals, or we call it as a medium term goals. Small term goals is otherwise called as short term goals because these are based on the time period. So, short term goals, medium term goals, and long term goals. So, organizations that consist of people with formally assigned roles. So, for carrying out these goals, it's important that you require people to execute it. So, that's where human resources comes into the foray. So, where these people are assigned roles, they work together. They work together in teams. Every department comes close together. They're interconnected and they work together to achieve these organizational goals or the strategic objectives. The whole process that happens in human resources, the HR manager is said to be the person who coordinates for the work. So the HR manager is the person who is responsible for accomplishing these goals, and he also manages the efforts of the people. So he knows where, who is doing, what they are doing, and how to go about. In continuation, the experts also agree that for managing the human resources, the management functions and human resources functions need to go together. So, what are the management functions? The management functions are planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. So, all these management functions are said to be representing the management process. The planning function establishes the goals and the standards. They develop the rules and procedures, the plans, the long term, the short term, and the medium term plans, along with the forecasting techniques. The organization function gives a subordinates a specific task, delegation of authority to carry out the work, and they establish the channels of authority. The channels of authority is said to be the people to whom he has to report regarding the execution of work. Staffing function determines what type of people they need to hire, recruit prospective employees, because job role fit plays a vital role, and selection, training, performance standards, evaluation, and counseling of employees. All these are said to be the part of management functions which helps to carry the organizational objectives, the achievement of it in a very smoother manner. Controlling function. Controlling is said to be setting standards such as sales quotas, quality standards, checking the actual performance, which compares the standards, and leading the corrective course of action. So, among the above listed function, we need to look into the staffing function, which coordinates with the human resources functions. Now, looking into the meaning of HRM and what is HRM? HRM is said to be human resources management that is concerned with the people's dimension in the organization. It facilitates the competencies and retention of the skilled force. It helps to develop the management systems that promotes commitment and developing practices that fosters the teamwork, and it makes the employees feel valued and rewarded. Now, what is all about it, right? So, it is nothing but it's a process, right? These process happens throughout the year. It is systematic in nature, which is said to be the main characteristics of human resources management. The word human resources management is about people. So that is why we talk about the people's dimension in the organization from the employee point of view. Now, facilitating the competencies. Now, when you allot a work to a person, to an employee in the organization, it's important that the execution, the course of action, the final result should be good enough. It should be achievable. When measured in financial terms, the profitability of the organization has its impact because of the work that is executed by the employees. So it's important that competent people need to be looked into. For this, you require two important factors that comes along, which is called as K&S, knowledge and skills, are said to be the two main components for these competencies. So, people who are really working hard for the organization need to be retained because, based on the skilled force, the organization will be pretty well known in the markets. So, retention of skilled force are said to be the important task nowadays, and developing the management systems. Organizations can have systems like HRIS, which is Human Resources Information Systems. It works along with the financial information systems with other systems in the organization. They are said to be database, which comprises of the records of various activities of the department. So this helps to promote people. If they utilize these management systems in a proper manner, they will be able to promote more organizational commitment because these systems helps you to give a better insight. So better decision making is said to be possible. And you need to have all these in the form of good practices in the organization. So, if you develop these practices, it helps you to foster, it helps you to promote teamwork, better understanding among the people, better superior and subordinate relationship can be enforced. So, if things go positively in organization, retaining people or retaining employees is not a difficult task. Now, other than the retention, it's important that human resources need to concentrate for employees based on their work. Their work need to be recognized and they need to be valued. Okay, so all these are one part. The other part of HRM also emphasizes on training, appraisal, which is called as performance appraisal, compensating the employees through rewards and recognitions, attending to the industrial relations, which is otherwise called as people like laborers, employees, management, government, suppliers who are said to be involved. They are termed as industrial relations, taking care of the health and safety of the employees, avoiding accidents at workplace and taking necessary measures on that, and see to that the organization, the management has always concern which is fair in nature for the employee issues. Looking into the definition of human resources management much more detailed, the definition that you see on the screen will be able to relate it to the management functions. These we have seen in the previous slides. So when you look into these definitions, HRM refers to acquisition, retention, motivation. So the previous definition, when compared to this, you're able to look into much more insights we are able to get. So motivation, motivating the employees, because you need to have a stable and a talented workforce. So it's important that maintenance of these human resources in organizations is a difficult task because there are a lot of opportunities that are available as the things are growing in the external world, the external environment. Human resources management works with other management functions, which includes staffing. They are planning, organizing, directing, controlling, and procurement. We are talking about the procurement means recruiting personals who fit, who can work according to the organizational culture. You need to develop, you need to compensate them, you need to integrate, utilize these human resources in a proper manner, maintain, right? And even if you separate the human resources, if they leave the organizations, see to that they are leaving in a good manner. And organizational and societal objectives need to be accomplished. The organization takes everything from the society, so they have to give back to them. So there are various dimensions the definition highlights here. Now, looking into the scope of human resources management, the scope is said to be always wider in nature. This is said to be a modern HRM practices. The scope comprises of the following. Personal aspect is always concerned, sorry, personal aspect are always concerned with manpower planning, recruitment, selection, placement, transfer, promotion, training and development, layoff, retrenchment, remuneration, incentives, productivity, etc. Now, all these are concerned with the human resources management. You will be looking into these topics more in detail, which may be quite difficult to understand now, but in the coming videos, it will you will be able to get a clear picture on that. So, human resources scope not only deals with the personal aspect, it also deals with the welfare aspects. So, what is the welfare aspect? The welfare aspect deals with the working conditions, the good organizational culture, the amenities, The facilities that you provide, such as canteens, rest and lunch rooms, housing, transportation, medical assistance, education, health and safety, recreation facilities to the employees. So, this is the second scope that deals with the human resources management. The industrial aspects, which is the third part, this covers on union management relations, which is called as trade unions, joint consultation, collective bargaining, grievances of the employees, disciplinary procedures, settlement of disputes, etc. Now, the scope, when looked into, is always more wider in nature. So, that is why you are able to see on the screen they are interconnected and they are very much into involved in each and every function. They are related. Okay, it talks about hiring, remuneration, employee motivation, employee maintenance, industrial relations, and the prospects. You will be learning about these in the functions of the organizations, which is going to be the next. When we talk about the functions of human resources management, human resources planning is said to be the first function that refers to the process by which the companies do identify the number of jobs that are vacant in their organization, whether they have whether they have an excess staff or shortage of it. Now we call this as the current inventory of people in the organization. You don't have stocks of people, but whether do you have sufficient people in the organization to carry out the work. Job analysis is said to be the second function that are related. It gives a detailed explanation about each and every job that are there in the company. When you talk about the third part, which is called as recruitment and selection. So, recruitment and selection is based on the information that is said to be received from the first function. The first function is none other than the human resources planning. So, based on the information that is given, the job analysis happens. It's important that the job analysis, the current job need to be analyzed properly. You need to look into any upgradation is required in case of certain things that are redundant in the jobs need to be removed. Nowadays, we look into these jobs are technological oriented, where technology have started to play a vital role. Have the organization included that particular aspect in the job? We need to look into. So that's why job analysis comes into the foray. Now, based on all the information that is provided and collected, the job analysis, the company prepares the advertisements for procuring people, for getting a good talented people. You need to get advertisements. You need to publish them in the regional and the national newspapers. There are various methods in which recruitment happens. So, this recruitment, which is said to be inviting the number of applications for the advertisements, which is said to be a response from the applicants, is said to be published, and interviews on date are said to be scheduled and they are conducted, and the right employee is selected. So, recruitment and selections are said to be interdependent process. The next important function as to human resources are said to be orientation and induction. Once the employees have been selected, the induction or the orientation program has to happen. Now, what does this induction or orientation means? Orientation program is nothing but making the rules, the regulations, and the situation in the organizations familiar to the employees, to the newly recruited personals. The next important function would be the training and development. So every employee needs to undergo. They need to get trained according to the organizational objectives, even though they are experienced. Some may be freshers. So, according to the work culture and work standards of the organization, it's important that the training program has to happen, which is said to be the important function of the training department. It gives a better performance on the jobs. Training programs are also conducted for the existing staff and see to that they have gained a lot of experience out of training because execution comes here. This is called when you give training to the new personals who are said to be selected. It is called as a refresher training. We'll be looking into the types of training when you study this topic. The next important function is called as performance appraisal. Once the employee has put in around 1 year of service, appraisal happens. The appraisal procedures depends upon the organization. How many times in a year it's happening? It can be 6 months once or once in a year. So it depends upon the organizational policies and regulations. It is conducted by this department, human resources, and checks, and they keep a track of the performance of each and every employee of various departments. The next important function is called as compensation, planning, and remuneration. So we call it as a compensation management. There are various rules regarding compensation and other benefits. Motivation, welfare, health, and safety are said to be the functions that comes after compensation management. So motivation becomes important to sustain the number of employees in the organization.